hi there, ho there! Welcome to another podcast from the Gainesville Community Counseling Center. Welcome to the new you. We're here today with Gina Romblad, and I'll introduce her in just a little while. But let me tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and bring you up to date on anything new around here. We are a counseling center. Did you know that?
I do now.
Oh, see? So we do individual, group, couples, families, and we do a lot of different things around here. We service the Gainesville community. We do online therapy. We do in-person therapy. So if you're looking for help, we have space for you. So come on down. So the podcast is all about us getting to know you, you getting to know us, and us talking about different topics related to mental health. And you can expect that over the time of this podcast, we'll talk things like mindfulness. Do you know what mindfulness is?
I do.
Is it good?
I think it's awesome.
Okay, well, we're going to be mindful of that. Mental health tips. We'll talk about hot topics. My hot topics are always related to sex because I love sex. Relationship tips. We'll talk a little bit about when we release these schedules and how often we're going to do it. And every month we'll have a different topic. So this month's topic, drum roll please, is parenting and back to school.
Yeah.
Because that's coming up soon, isn't it?
It is.
Like next week, I think?
This week.
This week. Really?
Wednesday.
Wow.
The voice you hear is a ghost. She's the producer. Her name is Lexi. And sometimes she thinks she can participate. Which is fine. But before we get into that topic, I think you love mindfulness, you said?
I do.
So,
Big fan.
give me a mindfulness tip or something that folks can use for self-care.
Okay. So one thing that I like to tell my clients is that a lot of times we get anxious and angry about things that we have no control over. So one thing that I've found really helpful, you take a deep breath. You want to do belly breathing, make sure your belly rise and fall, and then identify what it is that you're feeling. If it's anger, look underneath there a little bit. Pick up the rock and see what emotion is under there. And then say, you know what, based on this, am I anxious or worried about something that I do have control over, or do I not? And if I do, what can I do about it? And if I don't, I'm gonna let it go. I'll teach you briefly how to do that as well. And either way, what can I do to take care of myself? What healthy coping skill can I use? Making sure I'm not letting anybody hurt me, making sure I'm not using a substance to cope, any kind of mind-altering substance, alcohol is included in that, that we're putting into our minds and brains that isn't going to help us control our behavior and our thinking. So one of the best mindfulness visualization exercises that I've found to be really helpful for people is based on the idea of an ocean. So you close your eyes and you picture yourself standing on a beach. And you picture the bluest ocean you can think of. And you watch the waves coming in and out. And you just sit there with any kind of overwhelming feelings you have. This is good when you're really angry and frustrated. And then, so you're watching the waves, and one of them picks you up, and you have no control over it, so you just surrender to the wave. And then it just sets you back on the beach and takes all that, anxiety, anger, stress, whatever it is that you're carrying around with you, back out into the ocean. And you don't have to work at all to do this. The ocean does it for you. And then you can just go on with your day.
Well, very neat. I like that idea. My wife would love it. She loves the ocean. I don't, because there are sharks in the ocean, and I'm afraid of sharks.
Well, there don't have to be sharks in your ocean.
Oh, good. So I can have a shark for his own. It'd be like Cedar Key. You ever been to Cedar Key?
Yes, I have.
That little beach right there.
Yeah.
It's not a beach, right?
It's a very small beach.
I won't even go in there, because I think Jaws can get through the net and come and get me. So anyway.
You should reframe your thoughts about that.
I should. There are lots of things about which I should reframe my thoughts, but sharks are not one of them. So the idea is deep breath. into the belly
Yeah.
and using guided imagery. And you like to use the idea of a beach being lifted up and then being taken back to the beach, and then everything just kind of washes away.
Yeah, some people have also, used like a bag of rocks that you're carrying around, but I kind of like the fact that they're out in the ocean, in the abyss somewhere, and you don't have access to them anymore. You can't go back and pick up your bag of rocks because it's not there on the beach behind you stressing you out.
Right. You just let it go.
Yep.
I like that idea. Well, so Gina, you have been here for about a month and a half, 2 months now?
Something like that.
Right? So tell us a little bit about you and what you do and kind of your approach to therapy.
Okay. So I am originally from Connecticut. I've been living here for a little over 8 years. And graduated from UConn, got my master's there.
Go Huskies.
Yeah, Huskies. And so I got my social work degree there, and then when I was in my undergrad, I also got a BA in voice. So I got a music degree and a minor in theater, so I could keep myself sane. It was my own way of coping, is to do theater classes and costume stuff and lighting. And then I moved here to live with my now husband. And we have almost 4-year-old daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's a lot, but she's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
And I worked at Meridian for 8 years, since like the week I moved here. And then I was ready for a change and came here, and I'm excited.
Well, fantastic. Well, we're glad to have you here. So your daughter's not in school; she's in daycare. But you know that school starts this week, and I can imagine that for a lot of folks that's kind of a stressful period. So let's talk a little bit about some of the anxiety that we can anticipate for the parents and things that might produce some anxiety for them. So how can we identify the anxious parts for parents? What do you think they're going to be anxious about in general?
I think one of the biggest things is like, is my child going to have a good experience? And not having control over what goes on when you're not there. And I think a lot of that, is, again, something we can let go and focus on what things we are able to do, like working at home with the child and modeling similar things to what their teachers are modeling. I found that really helpful with my child when something is going on at home, and then how are you guys doing this at school? How are you managing this? Since you have kids all around you all day, and I think that's been helpful for us. And is my child going to get in an accident on the school bus? Is somebody going to hurt my child? Not having that, having your child in that bubble,
Sure.
Especially after, being with your kid all day, every day, during summer sometimes.
Yeah, so the parents have their own anxiety related to it. And I think one of the things that has been pretty consistent, especially over the past couple of years, is, just anxiety about COVID and now the monkeypox. I don't even know what that is. I just know it's something, right?
Yeah.
But there still is a residual anxiety about sending their kids back into a school setting where COVID is a potential, and the numbers continue to rise, and everybody seems to be getting it again. What would you suggest parents could do to kind of manage that anxiety?
If you feel comfortable, sending your child to school with a mask and some hand sanitizer, and reminding them of what the best practices are for just, bringing them back to where we were in that regard, like just, hey, remember this is what we did last school year, and, things might be a little different, and, making sure you're washing your hands, teaching good hand washing skills, all those things. And again, letting go of what we can't control. We can't control germs, but we can control how we manage the world around us a little bit.
And we like to have control over things.
We do.
I think.
I like choices in my life.
Yeah, I do too. So, the parents have their anxieties related to the school system overall, and then kids are anxious, and we're noticing, an increase in anxiety, amongst all school-age children. So how can parents help their kids manage their own anxiety related to making new friends, going into a new school setting, middle schoolers going into an entirely new building, new kids coming into the community? What are some simple tips that parents might be able to use to help their kids?
Well, I think one thing is that belly breathing that we were talking about. And it's interesting that you mentioned that. I was looking online, and one of the websites that I direct my clients to, that I get a lot of my stuff from, is therapistaid.com. It's wonderful. It's very clear and easy to understand. And I found a couple things that I thought were really good resources. In addition to some things that, some tips to aid anxiety.
Sure.
So I thought these things would be fun to share. So they have this on under children and anxiety, this family mindfulness schedule, which I thought was really neat. Kind of goes over when you're waking up, what to do, traveling, school, and includes square breathing, which is a common child therapy technique.
Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah. So you mean the
square
breathing? Yeah, definitely. So the point of it is to focus on, you can count with your fingers or you can draw a square on the paper, but you want to think of breathing in a square. And by that I mean you breathe in on the top of the square for 4 seconds, then you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you wait 4 seconds. And you can slow that process down as you would. I've tried it and I feel like it's a little rushed for me. So sometimes taking, I tend to make it a little bit more of a rectangle, but I think that's been really helpful. There's also some awesome scholastic books. There's one that's called Belly Breathe, and that's been cool. I read that with my daughter. And there's a lot of cool mindfulness things in here, like mindful eating, enjoying your lunch when you have a break, and really noticing smells and tastes and all these sense-involved things. Noticing when the child wakes up, what things can they notice with their 5 senses, doing body scans to see where we might have tension and just kind of breathing into those spaces.
Sure. I love body scans.
Yeah. They also had this cool idea for school of this mindfulness bracelet, which I had not heard of until this week.
What is that?
So it says, with your child, spend an afternoon making bracelets that are fun and comfortable to wear. Every time you notice the bracelet on your wrist, take a moment to note one thing you see, hear, smell, and feel, and practice at home to get your child in the habit of using this skill when they're not with you. And I think that's a cool way to connect, give your child that sense of comfort, and then you feel a little bit comfortable from, your place of work or being at home or whatever, that they have that connection to you.
Yeah, I've seen on the Facebooks, the face pages, there's this ring or something that couples can purchase that you can send a signal to your partner's ring and it lights up. And it says, "Oh, I'm thinking about you."
That's cool.
Or, I've not looked into it, but so the Foursquare, it's also called Foursquare breathing, right? And do you know the history behind it?
I have not.
So it was actually developed by the military.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Navy SEALs, I think, were the ones who invented it, and so that is their way of maintaining their own anxiety. So I figured if it's good enough for the SEALs, it's good enough for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the idea of the bracelet because it does have that connectional piece for both the parents as well as the kids. So what are some other things, and you got all of this from, what's the website again?
Therapistaid.com, AID.
www.therapistaid.com.
Most definitely.
And we'll put it in the link. We'll
Very
put the link
cool.
in the bio.
They also have these cool worry coping cards that I thought were neat that you can cut up for your kids. You can see that on the camera here. so it has like taking deep breaths or stop and listen, draw what's bothering you, listen to music if you have a break, practice a hobby. And it kind of gives them little instructions. So if they're worried, you can kind of send, hey, use one of these, bring your
that's
cards
pretty
with
cool.
you as like a little reminder. I thought that was neat.
Yeah. That's especially helpful, I think, for neurodivergent kids, right? That in those times when they're feeling overwhelmed or, their senses are just too much, and oftentimes they're not able to articulate verbally. And so being able to have that in particular would be quite helpful for them, but it's quite helpful for everybody else, I think,
Yeah,
as well.
I think it's a cool reminder, just, having pictures and make it really eye-catching too.
Absolutely. And so that kind of brings up this notion, when you think about the bracelet and checking in with your kids, and even kids checking in with each other, this notion that as a parent, our attitude can really influence the child's attitude.
Oh yeah.
And in school, a student's attitude, or even the teacher's attitude, can influence that. How can we manage kind of the attitude that we're putting out, and how can we be productive with our anxiety, because sometimes it can be productive, so that we are engaging in a healthier way with our own mental health and the mental health of our kids?
I think anxiety gets a bad rap because we only think of the distress side of it. But positive anxiety, or eustress, EU, is like what helps us to not go hang out with somebody in a dark alley that seems creepy, or, do something that makes us feel uncomfortable,
Right.
When it's naturally a dangerous thing and we shouldn't be doing it. And so those things, help us. And so they can also help us do things like study for tests. And we can guide our kids, in our own selves to use that as productivity.
Right.
To, help us do things that we need to do in order to accomplish things that we need to do, like, staying organized and, doing what we need to do to pass our exams and
all that other
absolutely.
stuff. Yeah. And that's called eustress, EU
Yep.
stress. And so then the opposite of that is,
Distress.
oh gosh. And so that's what most people think about when they think about anxiety, and they think about the negative impact that it has. And certainly it does have negative impacts on people's lives, but I think most people can balance the eustress and the distress.
Yeah.
And when you're in a place where there's distress, that's when you can really implement the body scan, the breathing, and some other things. What about things like diet and exercise? How do those impact anxiety overall, and can be utilized by parents and students to kind of manage anxiety?
Yeah, I think, even on these cards, it says get moving, practice a hobby, do something active. A lot of those things can help us to reduce anxiety. And I think just overall self-care is so, so important. If we're not taking care of ourselves, it's hard to take care of our kids.
Right.
And, I've needed to find ways to, find time for myself, just to take care of me every day.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not as easy as,
Yeah. Well, it's like filling your own gas tank, right? And so if you're driving your car and you're not taking time to fill up the gas tank, you're going to be on the side of the road empty and not of use to anybody. And so the self-care is ultimately about you loving yourself enough to say, I need more gas in the tank.
Yeah, I tell my clients, like, if you're burning the candle at both ends, there's nothing to light the wick with. And, we just get so exhausted that we, end up saying things that we don't mean, and getting so overwhelmed that we're not sure how to manage things. And, we have to slow down. And I think COVID has taught a lot of people that, forced connection with others,
Right.
making us spend time with the people that are healthy for us and make us feel good, because we were in this bubble of, just isolation, and had to figure out new ways of coping with our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's one population that we work with a lot around here, the LGBTQIA+ pop. And I personally am concerned for that population, especially the students, as they're going back into this new year with the, even though they're going to say, it doesn't say this, but the Don't Say Gay bill,
Yeah.
right? And the potential limitations and the negative impacts that it can have on not only their mental health, but their physical safety as well. So what are some things, or how can parents help, that population in particular, as they're going into this new school year with this law, and certainly, and I think rightly so, a bit of fear about what they're going to encounter and what this bill means for them individually. So what would you suggest to them?
I think it's important to just support our kids in whatever they might be going into. Knowing that we don't have control over what goes on for them, in a big way when they go to school, but just encouraging their own identity and encouraging them to, doing things that help their self-esteem and help them, just to feel good about themselves, and accepting our kids where they are. Just like we need to accept ourselves where we are. And what we do for our clients every day.
Sure.
Just meeting them where they're at, and I think just supporting what they feel their identity is.
Right.
And if they hear some of these terms in school, helping them understand that's what that means, and that I'm going to love you no matter what's going on with you or who you feel like you are, and not forcing our kids or anybody else to be in a to fit themselves into any one mold, and to just be open about who they are, and have that self-awareness.
Right. So in part, the parent becomes a safe space for the kid.
Yeah.
Right. And this notion of safe space, like what is how do you define what a safe space is?
I think it's having a place that you can genuinely be yourself. And to know that if you can, you can go to that, it could be a physical place. There are like designated safe spaces, certain agencies, things like that. And also just, having hopefully home being a safe environment for that child, and knowing it's okay, I'm here, I can just be myself, and be able to talk about what's going on with me. And
Right.
I tell my clients, I think it's fun that Dr. Seuss said, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
Right.
And just knowing the people that really care about you are going to be there for you and accept you as you are.
Right. So it may not be a physical location, but especially at school, identifying supportive teachers, supportive faculty, supportive staff,
Yeah.
is a living safe space, right? And even friends that will support you.
Yeah, any of those things can be safe spaces for somebody, and just I can be myself in this place right now.
Sure.
And
Sure.
guided imagery can also help with that too. If we don't
Absolutely.
feel like we're in a safe space, we can go to our safe place and use our senses, and be in a place where we feel like we're comfortable.
Yeah. One thing I hear parents say a lot is that sometimes they don't know what to say to their children about depression, anxiety, LGBTQIA plus issues, that they feel incapable, that they don't have the knowledge to deal with all that they're experiencing. So what are some tips that you might be able to give to parents who feel like they don't have the skill set to address whatever issue? I'm thinking particularly, parents that are dealing with children who are experiencing cutting or having suicidal thoughts, and those are scary.
Absolutely.
Right? And I can imagine, I'm sure you've had the parents come in and they're like, I don't know what the hell to do. And I don't want to say the wrong thing. So what do you tell parents in that situation?
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
First of all, I was thinking when you were talking about that sometimes it's okay to tell our kids that we're not perfect and don't have all the answers. And that we're working on ourselves too, and it's okay to not be perfect in your parenting. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves in that regard.
Right.
And letting your kids know, if you don't feel comfortable talking to me about some of this stuff, there are people you can talk to, you can come to therapy, things like that. And letting your child know where those safe spaces are, and then helping, even if we need to come to therapy to get some of that information, looking up, ways to, give your child an outlet for shame and pain and feeling alone, and making sure that, even if I may, not be that space for you right now, or,
Right.
Knowing that there are people that you can talk to, and there are healthy ways that you can get out some of that stuff, and giving them tools like, worry cards and things about
Right.
anxiety, and, giving them safe outlets so that we don't feel like we have to hurt ourselves because we don't know what else to do with our emotions.
Right. And sometimes I tell parents, it's okay to just listen.
Yeah.
And in many cases, listening is a medication in and of itself, and it's kind of like what kids need. And if, generally speaking, if kids know they can come and tell you whatever it is, that's all they really need. in that
Yeah,
moment.
I think I told a client recently, let your child know that they can come to you with anything. Be it somebody is pressuring you to use drugs, or somebody anything like that. Come to me, and I'm not gonna get mad at you. Let me know what's going on. Let's talk about it. This is a safe space.
Right. Right.
And I can, if you want me to just listen, I can just listen. If you want me to, be there, whatever it is, that this is, just listening to your kids is a really powerful thing.
Yeah, because oftentimes they don't get listened to enough, and when we do listen, we kind of dismiss it, right? Like, so the Gottmans, they're my favorite
Oh, yes.
model. Right? You're studying, so, they have this technique called stress-reducing conversations, and the purpose of those is, for a couple, it's to make this sense of it's us against the world kind of a thing, and it's really just a venting session, like, no problem has to be solved. And in fact, in a stress-reducing conversation, you try to stay away from problem solving.
Yeah.
Right. And I tell my clients all the time that, at the end of the night or at the end of the day, you go home and your spouse asks you, how was your day? And my answer is always the same. Oh, it was fine. And then I guess I'm supposed to ask her the same question. And so I do, because that's what you're supposed to do. And my wife will say, and don't mean this sexist, but she'll say, do you want the man version or the woman version?
Interesting.
and the correct answer to that is whichever one you need, dear.
Yeah.
Right? That's like, don't ever say I want the man version, because the man version is a one-word answer, right? Because we men don't have words. And her version starts at 5:30 in the morning and tells me all about the dogs and how much they woke her up that night, and then she gives me it's a play-by-play from 5:30 in the morning until the time I got home. And inevitably she forgets something, and she starts telling about what happened at lunch again, and she doesn't skip the rest of the day. And my job is just to sit there and go, oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible, right? I don't solve a problem, but it's a great tool. And I think the reason I'm talking about it is because I think parents and kids can use that as well. Just venting the day. You don't have to solve a darn thing. So I like that. So listen more, talk less.
Absolutely.
Well, great. So as we wrap this up, any final thoughts that you have as to suggestions or tips or ideas for going back to school and parents?
Yeah, I actually found this really cool list, and things you can do to help ease your child's anxiety going back to school. And I thought it was really helpful. And I kind of talked about it from a therapy perspective, which I thought was fun for my therapy nerd brain. So the first one was empathizing and validating. Kids go through stuff, and I remember when I was young, I didn't want anybody to tell me that they knew how I felt. And I was a bullied kid, and I, went through a lot of that, and I, people were always trying to tell me how that, that they knew how I felt, but
Right.
empathizing and saying that you're, I know exactly what you're going through are two different things.
Exactly. So help me understand, or help them understand. What does empathy look like so that we can do it correctly?
I think sometimes it's trying to understand how that person might feel in that situation.
Sure.
And that's one of the biggest things I know in Gottman of building our own empathy. So putting ourselves in, how might I feel if I was in that situation? How do I feel hearing this? And how might they feel? And validating that their emotions are real and valid and it's okay to have them.
Say that part again.
Validating that our emotions are real and they matter and it's okay to have emotions.
So don't say, well, you shouldn't feel that way, or I don't know why you feel that way. But being able to say, it sounds to me like you're saying this. And it makes sense that if that's what you were thinking, that's what you're experiencing, it makes perfect sense to me that you'd be upset or you'd be angry or you'd be, yeah.
Yeah, and reflecting back makes a big difference too. Is that where you're at? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to be wrong too.
Yeah.
The next one was kind of normalizing. Like it's okay to go through what you're going through because everybody's, a lot of times, kids who bully are being bullied at home, or they, understanding our, again, our emotions and
Sure.
normalizing, it's okay to be nervous going back to school. I like that it said, avoiding the trap of reassuring your kids that everything's going to be okay.
Right. Because sometimes it won't.
Yeah. And I think it was cool that it said that minimizing your child's fears makes anxiety worse and creates dependency.
Correct.
And the kids will constantly seek more and more reassurance rather than learning to cope with their anxiety on their own.
Right.
So like being supportive and saying, things may, you may not ace every test. This may, your teacher might seem kind of mean to you or whatever's going on. It may not be perfect. Somebody might do something, that scares you at school. But thinking, what can you do? How can you be supportive to other people? And what's the best way to handle something? Allowing kids to learn to self-soothe on their own because we can't be there.
Right.
Teaching them, I think one of the hardest things as a therapist is not problem solving sometimes. And teaching other people to self-soothe on their own and not, wanting to get in and fix everything. Which I think is a natural parental thing.
It is, and I think the benefit of teaching them to self-soothe is it allows them to have control over something that they feel like they don't have control over, and it alleviates the anxiety of the parent trying to sometimes overparent.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you were talking about the don't say gay bill and everything, tolerating anxiety and the discomfort that it brings and learning that we, to be tolerant of other people. Just like in a work environment, you're going to meet so many different kinds of people in school and, learning to know that emotions come and go and they will pass and it's okay to sit in our emotion and understand this is the way I'm feeling right now. And it's okay.
Right.
And it, moods are ever changing.
Sure.
Anxiety doesn't last forever, especially if we can identify, hey, can I control this or can I not?
Right.
And letting go of the anxiety and anger we don't need. The other cool thing that they were saying was that being brave can cause a lot of discomfort. I thought that was really powerful.
What do they mean?
That it doesn't always feel good to do the right thing. And it's, sometimes, if you find something that's not going right or something that, you feel like, it's going to take some courage. It's not going to be fun probably. Like, if your kid finds a schoolmate, cutting in the bathroom.
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? How do you, sometimes it's going to be scary, but, sometimes that's that eustress that causes that action surge in us to do something to sometimes save somebody's life. Or, sometimes going through a difficult test. It's not fun, but using our breathing can really help a lot of that.
Sure.
I think one of the cool things in here, I think, was learning. Number 8 on here was practicing skills that can develop confidence. Have them teaching kids to learn how to use their alarm clock when it's still July.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that some adults
They still have alarm
struggle
clocks?
with. Apparently.
Really?
Sometimes they're on the phone now.
Oh, okay.
But, if they have to, walk to school, practice doing that. If they have to wake up on their own, doing that, using the alarm clock, learning, to handle, what if this happens? What if this happens? How are you going to handle it? And working on, when they do get anxious, finding things that are exciting. Those are fun things too that can make it, reduce anxiety in kids.
Sure.
That was number 9. Focus on excitement versus worries. I think, these therapists are big on cognitive distortions, at least I am. I'm a CBT therapist.
Right.
I do a lot of CBT and DBT and mindfulness and that kind of thing. And I think it's easy to get stuck in the shoulds and the what ifs.
Right.
And, kind of connects with number 8, which is get practicing.
Yep. I tell my clients all the time, don't shit on yourself. Right? And we shit on ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that should is the challenge with it is it's an evaluation and a negative judgment on how you should or shouldn't feel.
Yeah.
Good.
And the last one I think was really cool, and I think it's kind of a good wrap up too in terms of this list, is be a good role model. And I think that goes back to knowing, hey, I'm not a perfect parent, I'm not a perfect adult, and we're all figuring it out one thing at a time, and adults need to be brave in this situation too, and going problem solving and working through stuff as a family, I think can reduce everybody's anxiety and make it a lot easier to go through a lot of these transitions.
Absolutely, and we'll have this list will be on our email blast that we send out, so we can send that out to everybody. And if you want to be on the email list, you can go to www.gainesvillecounselingcenter.com. Lexi, what's that address?
www.gainesvillecounselingcenter.com.
And when you're at the website, you can also look over the profiles of all of our therapists. You can learn about them as individuals. You can learn about the insurances they take. You can schedule with them online, except for me. I don't have a link on mine, right? I don't.
Yes, you do.
I do?
Yeah.
People can schedule with me?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Doesn't mean you have space in your calendar.
I don't have space in my calendar. That is very true. That is very true. Well, Gina, I think the tips that you've provided are very helpful. And I want to plug, you're starting an art therapy group.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
So tell us about that real quick before we head off to lunch.
Sure. So it's going to be called Coping with Creativity, I think, or Creative Coping, one of those, for young adults. And we're going to be doing a lot of art therapy, self-esteem, learning how to manage emotions and all those kinds of things. And I think it'll be a fun way to connect with other people. I'm right after Labor Day, that same week, I'm going to also be starting anger management for any adults. So that's going to be really fun for me as well. So I like working on that kind of stuff.
Fantastic. So we'll have that information available on the webpage as well as on our email list. So once again, www.gainesvillecounselingcenter.com. Well, we hope you have enjoyed this rendition of the podcast. Welcome to the new you. And if you have any comments or any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And we'll get to them as quickly as possible. You can always email us also at, you can send it to office@gainesvillecounselingcenter.com, and that will come to moi. And if I don't have the answer, I'll forward it to Gina, because Gina will have the answer. And if she doesn't have the answer, we'll figure it out and we'll get it to you. But thank you for being here. And once again, come back next time for for Welcome to the New You.